everybody, welcome. This is David Bush from Grow My Profit, and I'm so excited that you are joining us live here today. If you're joining as a recorded version, that's perfectly okay. We're super excited to get your takeaways, and if you are here live, we'd love to see your takeaways and comments in the chat section of the Zoom technology. So if you just go into the chat feature and just put in the city and state that you're joining in from, we'd love to see where people are joining in from today. Would love to be able to connect up with some of those of you that are watching this on YouTube or watching this on social media platforms or on our website. We're super excited. We're all about helping individual business owners to grow sales, revenue, and profitability, and to 2 to 10x their business in 3 to 5 years. That's our mission and that's our vision. We want to see more people having more success and impacting more lives in a positive way through your businesses. And today I get a chance to introduce you to a good friend. Chad and I have been friends for over 5 years now. Got a chance to meet out at a conference. So you never know when you go to a conference when you're going to come home and have a buddy and have somebody that you think could be a friend for life and maybe even a business partner. But Chad and I have collaborated, shared ideas. We have similar passions around living extraordinary lives and helping other business owners to achieve extraordinary success. And Chad's got an amazing background. I'm going to give you just a little bit of his background, and then I'm going to have him share a little bit more of the details. But Chad is an entrepreneur, an author, a sales expert. And when I say a sales expert, I mean somebody that truly has refined his crafts. I would even say that he's a craftsman of the world of selling. He's the founder of BDR.ai and the director of sales for data integration and data governance at Informatica, the leader of AI for data. He's also the host of AI for Sales podcast, sharing insights on AI integration in sales. And beyond business, Chad hosts the You Matter to Christ podcast, blending faith and business, and continues to ignite Christian business, underscoring his dedication to spiritual growth. And I'm excited to get a chance to talk to you today, Chad, about how AI is transforming the sales world. You've been around sales for all of your adult life. You've done businesses, you've been a business owner, an entrepreneur, you've led at a C-suite level position for organizations, and it is changing rapidly. So give us a little background on your expertise on AI and sales.
Well, AI's obviously been around for a lot longer than what people think, right? I think a lot of people look at Gen AI, generative AI, like ChatGPT, and think that, well, that's it. It just showed up on the scenes a year and a half ago. But no, big data, AI, it's been around a long time. It's just more prevalent now that people can interact with it on a daily basis. And you're just starting to see it roll out very, very wide and deep. So I remember a few years ago when generative AI was just showing up. My son's at Colorado School of Mines in Golden, and they're taking pretty complex programming classes. Some of them with AI, some with cybersecurity, et cetera. And I'm at a dinner table with 3 college students, and I said, "Have you guys seen this yet?" And they hadn't. And I said, "Oh, okay, here, take my phone. Ask it anything you want to program something." And within like a minute, they said, "Oh my goodness, this is the entire homework that I had to do." And so for the first semester at School of Mines, they outlawed it. They said, "Hey, you really can't use that for your homework." Well, then I think they started seeing that everybody was using it. So imagine if they expelled some kid to say, "Hey, you can't use this." They'd have to expel the whole school. So it's here. It's here to stay, and it's how do we embrace AI to be more effective? So that's what I've had 175 guests on the AI for Sales podcast, Dave, over the last 3.5 to 4 years. And these are people that are, one of the early co-founders of IBM Watson. I think they renamed it to Watson X, if I know correctly. But I've been focused on applications that use AI to enhance the sales process, whether it's pulling data, whether it's doing digital outreach, or even dialing technology. So I look at data, digital, and dials are the 3 areas of an outbound sales prospecting motion. And if you don't have to hire a $7,000 a month headcount to be able to do all 3 of those things effectively, then I'm all in. And that's how we built our business. So
Wonderful. Well, you've written some great works. You've published some great podcasts on your podcast. If you have not had a chance to read Chad's book, be sure to reach out to us. We'd love to send you a digital copy of it. Chad's provided that for our Grow My Profit followers. But it's AI for Sales, how artificial intelligence is changing sales. And, you know, you were writing this, really on the budding cusp of 5 years ago. And it has evolved even further from there. And we're excited to get a chance to hear some of those updates. But you really break down how AI is integrating into all of these different categories, and you give examples and scenarios and case studies of individuals that have been utilizing this type of technology to build out their platforms. Where do you see the average business owner, Chad, is way behind the technology curve, and they're probably in a bit of fear. They're part of that late majority, maybe the early majority, where change is just innovating faster than they can embrace it. So where would you maybe go with that average business owner that wants to scale their business and utilize technology, but it's so overwhelming to them to even dig into, because everywhere they get into, it's just another black hole of information that's talking about technology they don't fully understand.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Dr. Joel Laban is a PhD and he teaches the only sales school master class, MBA program at Johns Hopkins University on the East Coast. He used to run a sales school at University of Houston, the number one fastest growing in the country, and they pulled him away to Johns Hopkins. He read the book twice. So he's probably the only person on earth who would read a book like this twice. And he did that so that he could write the forward and the backward of the book. And the quote that still sticks out to me to this day very clearly is, in sales, time kills deals, right? The longer you wait, if they don't sign, then it's just going to keep kicking the can. In AI for sales, AI kills time. So think about whether it's writing a proposal, whether it's reaching hundreds or thousands of people instead of dozens. It's just taking time and tedious tasks out of your day. So the good news is that AI is just starting to show up in multiple different applications. So if you're using email, you probably are going to have AI built in, right? It finishes your paragraph. You're like, just push the tab button and the AI finishes your sentence. But if you buy a data tool from a core provider, AI is probably built into that too. So that's the good news, is that there's always this early majority and late majority. When you look at Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm, I've always been the early adopter. And so whatever it is, you can bet that I'm 3 years ahead of everybody else. Now, in today's world, that's starting to change. I'll meet somebody and they're a year ahead of me in certain areas. And I'm like, wow, where have I been, right? Wake me up. So I think the biggest thing for me is, are you growing your top line as quick as you can be? Are you missing opportunities? And then number two, you got to look at your bottom line, right? That's what Grow My Profit does. Because are you spending $7,000 a month on a headcount that you could be spending $250 a month on a technology to deliver? And those are some of the questions. If I had my druthers and I had $7,000 a month to spend, you can better believe I'm not hiring a $7,000 SDR in today's market. I'd rather have 4 virtual BDRs, so to speak, for $1,000 a month, doing 4 times the work than 1 full-time dedicated resource. So these are some of the things that I think people should be looking at. And that's what I've been invested for 7 years, building my company around helping founders and CEOs do that more effectively. So
yeah, and we're going to get everybody a copy of the digital version of the book, but we want to be able to dive right into the 3 Ds that you talked to. We all know what the big D is, but we don't have to talk about the big D. We're going to talk about the 3 Ds of AI that you believe is for everyone, right? And everyone that has a sales aspect of their business, they can utilize these 3 Ds. But before we jump into that, let's talk a little bit about when AI doesn't work, because there are some scenarios, there are some situations where AI is not going to solve the puzzle or solve the problem. Would you share a little bit more about, Chad, where it doesn't work?
yeah, especially when it comes to outbound selling. I would say there's just different ways to use AI than it not working. And let me just give you an example, right? Let's say you only have 500 potential prospects and there's only 2 decision makers per prospect. That's 1,000 people you need to reach on planet Earth. And so let's say, well, a normal company might do an email blast to those 1,000 people. Well, you could have a 20% opt out on an email on your very first email. So now you're not legally allowed to even reach 20% of your 1,000 people. So that's a much higher touch use case if you're doing account-based selling. But the good news is there's even AI for that. There's a way, I have 30,000 or so connections on LinkedIn. So they say for every 1,000 that you have, there's 1,000,000 second-degree connections, right? So if I connect to Dave and Dave's got 5,000 connections, well, then I'm one step removed from those 5,000. So if you have a list of 1,000 people you need a meeting with, you upload it into this AI software for account-based selling, and it connects the dots for you and says, oh, Dave knows the CEO of IBM. And it says, Dave knows him well. Maybe he's next door neighbors. Well, I know Dave. Dave knows the CEO of IBM. Great. And I'm making that one up, by the way. I don't know if you know the CEO of IBM, Dave.
Not yet. Not yet. We're going to use AI today to find it. No.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what the AI can do, even in account-based selling, where traditionally you would think, well, I really can't use automation. I can't use AI to do outreach. But there's even tools that can help you there. So it's getting harder and harder to find a use case that AI doesn't help you with in the sales process.
Yeah, well, let's jump in and just give the participants in today's video the opportunity to see how these 3Ds could work in their advantage to scale sales without having to have a huge downstroke.
Yeah, so it's funny. I worked backwards on this list. I started with a company called Connect and Sell, where I had sales and marketing. And so I started with the dials part. And I would say I'm probably one of the top 50 people in the country who've listened in and done cold calls at scale. So cold calls work in certain situations, and others not so much. So it depends on the deal size. Do people pick up their phones? There's so much variability when it comes to dials, but dials is an important part of the aspect. Digital is what I've been working on for the last 7 years, and even more than that with all of the companies that I work for. Digital is email outreach, LinkedIn outreach, perhaps Facebook outreach. And then what we're going to talk about first here is the data, because with garbage data, then you're not going to get the results that you're. So I have a customer that I've worked for about the last 6 months or so. And when they first started reaching out, their list was 70 to 80% wrong people. So when you're calling those people, you're just wasting a lot of time, money, and energy on talking to the wrong people. So it starts with data. So my advice, there's so many tools out there. Everybody's heard of ZoomInfo. They've been the biggest player in the market for a long time. Seamless.ai from a low-cost perspective. But we've got a relationship with 2 vendors. One of them's in Europe, one of them's in Phoenix, Arizona. And that gives us a lot deeper ability to go in and use things like intent data. Are they looking for my kind of sales coaching? Or in our case, sales acceleration, business development, inside sales, B2B sales acceleration. So if you can allow AI to go and look at all of these different companies and then start from a list that has 92% chance that they're looking for your product, then you're gonna get lift in the people that you're reaching out to. So that's the first thing, is choose a vendor. Some of the vendors that I mentioned, they may have the intent capability, but you got to pay extra for it. And the nice thing with our partners is that it's all embedded into the platform. So you don't have to go out and pay extra. So I think intent is a huge piece of the puzzle when possible. And then there's a thing called a lookalike audience. So, hey, here's my top 500 customers, prospects, whatever. And then you just ask the system to spit out who are the most similar kinds of companies and people in those companies. So that's another very good way to go about it. And then the last thing I'll talk about is LinkedIn groups becomes a very, very amazing way to reach out to people. So this was for another customer called Objective Management Group, and they've been around for 20 years. They help companies hire A players. So they've scored over 2 million candidates. They're AI for sales hiring. So when I first started working with their new CEO who took over the business about a year and a half ago, we looked at groups, revenue and sales enablement orchestration. So when you approach someone that says, hey, I noticed, Kevin, you're the VP of Global Sales for HEAP, and you and I are both part of the revenue and sales enablement orchestration group, you think that's better than just some random message of, hey, I see you're the VP of sales at HEAP. You know, we help companies like ABC and XYZ. That's what everybody says. So if you can come at it more from a position of trust, I noticed that you're part of that, let's connect. So on average, when you can go to a group, you might get 40 to 80% people say, sure, I'll connect. From experience, if you just go cold to this list without referencing we're both part of the same group, you might get a 20% connection rate. So if your goal is to expand your reach, have more people in your first degree connections, then why wouldn't you use groups? Events is another good one. Hey, I noticed you just attended David's event on LinkedIn Live last week. Curious, what were your perspectives on using AI in sales? Just something as simple as a question versus what most salespeople want to do. And right, Dave, think when we set up your campaign, the knee-jerk reaction of a seller is, we help you 2 to 10x your revenues. We help you grow at 3 to 5. We want to talk about our services and being able to change based, and again, that's where it's back to the data. I always start with the data first, because then when I build my messaging, it helps dictate what it is I'm going to say to those people. So
And your
those are
technology
three
has the ability
ways.
to be able to combine using the machine learning processes that you can take those really high quality data sets that you buy from a data provider, and it can take the LinkedIn collective data that you pull from Sales Navigator or a LinkedIn filtered search, and it can do some aggregation with that data so that you can really target the right prospective candidates. Correct?
Yeah, because in Navigator, you own what you see is what you get from a filter perspective. So if you scroll up and down on the left side there, if we were in the live LinkedIn app, there might only be 20 filters. Where are you located? What's your company size? Well, what if I want to ask the question, are you funded? Oh, sorry, we don't have that in our dropdown. What if I want to ask the question, are you looking for lead generation services? Oh, sorry, we don't have that filter. So the benefit of working with a third-party provider is exactly that. It gives you hundreds of filters, maybe up to 100, somewhere around there, of a lot more aggressive and better filtering kinds of mechanisms. Then you take that file and then you import it into the software. The other thing that people may not think about, ChatGPT, whether you're on 3.5 or 4.0, if you don't have 4.0, I would encourage it. For $20 a month, it speeds up your process. It's the best $20 a month you could probably spend, better than a Starbucks, that's for sure. Just buy K-cups and have them at home and save the extra money. But if you go into ChatGPT, if I'm working on new campaigns and new customers, I'll ask, please visit this website. And I'll say, if you're selling into a company that's nonprofit and we need to find the person that does the fundraising, who should I target? I might know 3 of the 7, but there's some, like, just look at this one here. CSO, got it. VP sales, got it. Director sales ops, yep. Sales manager, yep. So most of these, the one I would have missed, head of growth. And guess what? That you might be missing 10% of your entire prospect base because you're not going after head of growth. And guess what? There's probably a large percentage of your competition that are missing the head of growth title as well. So don't forget to ask ChatGPT, here's the nonprofit example. I have no idea who to sell into a nonprofit. So I wouldn't have known any of these. The chief philanthropy officer, I didn't even know that job existed. So now I can go help a customer create their list by asking ChatGPT, what titles should I be using when I go build the filters?
Wonderful.
The other couple things to point out, when you choose a data provider, make sure they have mobile numbers if you're going to call, because if you call a switchboard these days, it can take 20 to 30 dials. And 20 dials might not sound like a lot, but if you have a sales team or if you're the founder, making 20, that's about 2 hours worth of work. So, would you rather do 2 hours and call 20 people, or would you rather have a mobile number where it only takes 5 to 8 dials? I can save you an hour and a half just by saying, here's a list of mobile numbers. And so think of that when you're scaling an organization, the value of having a mobile number, that's hours and hours and hours of saved time for sales professionals. And then on the email side, these are two different technologies. One has a button that says verified or guest. So if you're doing an email outreach, then you probably should click verified, don't click guest, and that might cut the list in half. But at least we know these emails don't bounce and they actually work. And then the other tool that we really love is they'll do real-time verification. So it could take a few hours, but then hey, we got the mobile numbers, the person still works there. This tool is just so powerful. And these days, if you were go to a data provider, they charge you 5 to 10 grand a year just to become a customer. And you only get a certain number of downloads. When you work with a company like Grow My Profit and BDR AI, we are a mass buyer of data. So we can deliver records at a lower cost and higher quality because of the way we know how to help you build the lists and everything that we've been talking about so far. Within 30 minutes, we can get you a list. If you bought from a vendor, you've got to go through selection, a purchase order, and then you're talking to a junior level person that's trying to help you onboard. Like, there's so many business values of working with a company like ours that helps you do it more effectively. Any questions there or thoughts so far on the data side?
Yeah, for those of you that are attending live, if you have any specific questions about the things that we're talking about, put them into the Q&A and I'll ask them of Chad. When it comes to pricing around data, if somebody was in a position where, let's say that they have, maybe 2,000 to 5,000 people that they really want to focus on and move through a process of the sales process, what would that look like if they just wanted to grab a hold of the data?
Yeah, great question. The good news is when you become a customer of the LinkedIn technology that we're going to talk about next, for your first 1,000 leads, we don't even charge extra for that, Dave. We want to help customers get familiar with the value of having good data. So when you sign up, you get 1,000 free leads in the partnership with Grow My Profit. Beyond that, there's kind of two models. If you need mobile numbers, then you complete record with LinkedIn, direct dial, mobile number, a lot of fields. That's $1 a record. And if you only need LinkedIn URL, email address, and some of the basics, everything but mobile, then it's 50 cents a record. We have customers like Boston Consulting Group will purchase 10 to 20,000 records at a time for some of their projects. In those cases, for bulk buys, then we can have the conversation. But generally at 50 cents, we're quite competitive in the market. On a 20,000 or 100,000 download, we might come in below that.
Yeah, well, I know that the data is a big part of it, but let's talk about the digital aspect and how you can utilize the AI technology to be able to create conversations that are really going to warm up the leads that they have.
Yeah, well, let's start about to be careful of. This is what I did 10 years ago inside of a tech company. And this was the practice then. And unfortunately, it still is now for most companies. So I've always said, and all of my colleagues in the space say, don't spam your TAM. You have a total addressable market. And if you're going to be doing something like this with a 24-day cadence and 26 touches, I mean, just imagine the last time you were prospected. All it takes is 2 bad touches for me, and you're never going to be able to reach out to me and probably anybody in my company, because I'm going to blacklist you from my from BDRAI, the whole company. So you got to be careful with to not spam your TAM. So I say don't do it this way. And what I've been talking about for the last 7 years is a LinkedIn first approach. So the beauty of LinkedIn is, think about your CRM, especially for bigger companies, Dave. You know, RingCentral, where I used to work, or Riverbed, where I used to work. They've got huge CRMs with hundreds of thousands of records. But if they've done any kind of cadencing or sequencing tools, 40 to 60% will say don't reach out. But that's just for email. It doesn't mean I'm disallowed from connecting with you on LinkedIn. So that's what I learned by working for RingCentral, building a team of 100 people, is that when you connect on LinkedIn first, you've now gone around the spam compliance laws, right? You're now allowed to reach out to 60% of your database again. For a small business owner, this is probably less applicable, the use case that I just shared. However, if you email 1,000 people, the math says that less than 3% will actually respond, probably 1 to 2%. And of that, 92% will say, take me off your list. So I just scratch my head when someone asks me, well, why aren't you doing an email cadence? And I say, hey, there's vendors who do that still. If you have tens of thousands of prospects and you don't care about, spamming your TAM, then by all means, hire one of those vendors that are amazing at email. They have a warm-up feature. There's all kinds of tricks that you can use. But for the average everyday seller or entrepreneur or salesperson, I say LinkedIn first. And I do see there was a chat in here. If my territory is California, Arizona, Nevada, and I want to find the best 20 companies to hunt, what information do you need to help me identify them? What would your next steps be? Yeah, so great question. Top 20. I would want to understand what's the size of the company that you're working with, what kind of technologies might they have deployed in the past, what technologies might they be looking for. So for example, I have a customer that does technology that says, hey, if they've deployed SAP of this one particular product and they've deployed Snowflake of this other particular product, then they're likely good fit for us. So, and then I say, well, how many employees should that company have? Oh, at least 1,000. Got it. So those are my ingredients, right? They have Snowflake, they have an old SAP on-premise solution, and they're over 1,000 employees. And then I ask, well, what about industry? Oh, well, yeah, we serve these 3 industries. We have great case studies there. Okay, great. And so you can very quickly narrow down from a field of thousands down to 20. That's one example. But there's a lot of different ways you can use the filtering inside of these data tools.
And that's in the simple setup time, is when you do the onboarding, you ask those questions to really narrow down the ideal client profile. And then you're basically adding in the filters into that first 3,000 leads that you're going to provide to them.
The first 1,000 leads. Yeah. And if it's 20 companies, then the odds are there's probably 5 to 10 people within those companies that could use your product. So 5 times 20, you're at 100 people you need to prospect into. I would probably say you don't need a tool like BDR Reach Out if you only have 100 prospects that you need to reach out to. You could use it for 30 days and you could have a touch with all of those 100 people. But I would say a really good fit for the LinkedIn outreach piece, which is what I'm going to talk about next. If you have 1,000 or more people you need to reach, or better yet, 10,000, then this technology is very, very going to be very good for you. So when we first launched the business, David, about 7 and a half, 7 years ago, we would do the traditional approach to prospecting with phone, email, and social outreach and good data. But the difference was we would deliver what people normally deliver in years, we would do in 90 days. So we still do this, by the way. It's called prospecting as a service. And because we leverage technology, a better phone dialer, a better email tool, and a better LinkedIn tool, we can condense years of work into weeks. So this is just a good example to say, what would happen if I did 70,000 total sales activities in 97 days? And this was a really technical customer. And that's what happened. We booked 144 meetings in 97 days. And then when I ask, I had another slide deck on this one that would show a pop-up and say, how many reps do you think it took to do this? And the answer was a half a rep. And most leaders of an organization would say, what the heck are you talking about? There's no way a half a rep could do 74,000 touches. I was like, yes, when they wear the Iron Man suit, they can do 74,000 touches. So 250 dials a day in 2 hours using the dialer that we promote. Email, fully autonomous with personalization. I call it personalization at scale. And then 1,400 LinkedIn touches over 1,400 contacts over that period of time. I notice I put the red X in email because I really, this was 5 years ago, I really discourage email at all if you care about the prospects you're trying to reach, because otherwise you're going to not have a prospect list at the end of too long, because they're all going to opt out. So why use a tool that just doesn't work anymore?
Good point.
So let's dive into LinkedIn. This has really been a lot of the secret sauce. This works for 75 to 90% of companies. If your people are on LinkedIn, your decision makers are, then the odds are this is going to work. There's a few exceptions. If you're selling into school teachers, they don't check their LinkedIn very often. I tried a campaign and I don't recommend it. Right after a month, the customer's like, you told me a lot of these stats. Why isn't it working like you said? And I said, remember, I told you I didn't know if teachers were going to check, and I was right. They didn't. So that's the one I don't recommend. But this is what we call a simple campaign. It's very step 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. And it's, this is a customer of ours that reaches out, and it's just, notice the level of simplicity, of just being conversationalist. So this is the CRO of a company, actually the CEO of a company. He should be the CRO because that's kind of the job that he does. He does both. I've just checked out your profile. It looks like we're in a similar industry, looking to connect with like-minded individuals. That's it. Not selling anything, right? He could be a buyer. He could be a partner. I call that kind of a mystery message. So just open the funnel wide. Hey, come on in, check us out. You just want to have people come in and accept the connection request. Then we do a few steps like view their profile, follow it, maybe like some of the posts. We want to have some interaction. Then when we connect, I'm gonna share with you the strategy that we use and highly recommend to people. It's called give, ask. So instead of connecting and selling something, we like to recommend connecting and giving them something. And then wait another 3 days and give them something else. Then ask for a meeting. Most people ask for a meeting too early in the process. But I'm going to show you step by step. That's at a very high level, how it's set up in the software. It takes you 10 minutes to build a campaign like this in the simple campaign. So here's the fullness of the message. You connect your LinkedIn account, you build out your list, you import your list, and now we're into the messaging stage. So the first part of an onboarding call might take 20 minutes. Connect your LinkedIn account, pick your list. Now we're at this screen saying, all right, let's build your connection request. So this is one customer of ours. I've just checked your profile. Looks like we're in a similar industry. Connect with like-minded individuals that are improving sales for organizations. So this campaign is for a company that recruits sales coaches to be part of their franchise, to be franchisees, basically. So they're looking for these coaches that want to buy into this practice and become a franchisee. So first step, connect. He's getting about an 80% acceptance rate because when you look at his profile, it's done very well. He's the CEO of his company. He's out of New Zealand. It's just a professional and great first question. Then he does these 3 actions. And then here's the next message. Really few interesting years in our industry. Keen, because he's from New Zealand. Most people in the US may not ask that. Keen on knowing how it's played out for you. By the way, wondering if you're open for additional opportunities. What sales coach is going to say no to that? It'd be very difficult because no, I don't want any new sales opportunities. So he gets nearly 100% reply rate to this message. So think about what that means, right? You're now creating relationships at scale in such a magical way. And what do most people do? If I were to go into my LinkedIn right now, I think I just cleaned this out in the last hour, so let's see how many there are now. I had 20 yesterday. Okay. Michael, SEPA AAMS trademark, invite you to attend a wealth management summit. Not a chance. Sonia, subscribe to buy design. No, I don't need that. So just think of the ones that you're getting. Now this one, Chad, are you open to new opportunities? Let me look at his, at least I'm going to look at his profile. So think about that on your very first message after connection. Super important. In this case, fully automated 1 day after they accept our connection request. Then we haven't heard from them. So the good news is when you have AI and automation, the system's smart enough that if someone responds, it's going to stop the next cadence step. They come out of your LinkedIn campaign. So if someone responds back here, yes, I'm open. Okay, perfect. Now this particular person, he has someone managing his account. So he doesn't even go in and log in because he gets so many replies. He doesn't know what to do with all of them. So he has someone managing those on his behalf. And then if they don't respond, then, hey, touch and base again. Are you interested in connect to explore opportunities? Like that's pretty cool, right?
And you can also do a video in the same thing, right? You can upload a video that's a part of the attachment that sends the video.
Yeah. Really good point. The video feature here puts a name with a face. So I remember when I started at WebEx 20 years ago, and we didn't have video yet, just like we have today, where David and I are on video. And they rolled it out. And there was a picture of a person crossing an intersection. And he was grabbing this woman's purse, and it was paused. And then they played the rest of the video, and it showed that he grabbed her out of the flow of traffic and saved her life. And it was, one would have naturally jumped to the conclusion that he's a thief trying to steal her purse in the intersection. But no, he just saved her life. So the video tells the whole story, was the message of that WebEx CIO's presentation that day. And that's the thing here. When you read text, it might only communicate 18 to 20% of what you're trying to communicate. Are you interested in connecting to explore opportunities? Whereas if you had a video and Paul gets on and says, hey, I've had a chance to check out your profile, mate, and he's got a good New Zealand accent, I've had a good chance to check out your profile, mate. Looks like you'd make a great partner. We're looking to expand into the United States of America and identified you for a New York office. Let's connect. And he's looking in the eyes, looking at that person's LinkedIn page. And the beauty is you only have to record it once and it writes to many. So it looks as if he took the time to reach out to David and have a personalized video message when really all he did is record it at one time. So really good point. I love that video feature. It's just so differentiated from everybody else. And this was the piece that I mentioned, 134 replies on 129 people that connected. How is that even possible? Well, the reason is this thing counts. If you have 2 replies to one message, thanks, Dave, enter, love to connect, enter, that's going to double count. So this will be a little overstated, but the fact is it's near 100% reply rate on his outreach for the fractional sales outreach. So there's just certain campaigns you want to just think through, what do people care about when I'm trying to reach out to them? And how can I make it more of a question-based strategy than not? So and then you get into more complex views like this where you say, hey, I want to A/B test. Or what happens if they don't connect? Well, then I want to send them an in-mail. Or what happens if they don't connect on LinkedIn? Can I send them an email? Yeah, we can build these smart sequences to actually facilitate much, much more of a smart sequence to handle all those use cases. Any thoughts or questions on this one from our audience or Dave?
Yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the Q&A. Otherwise, I would just throw out a question when it comes to technology and not necessarily being as techy as some other leaders may be. A person comes in, they just say, I don't have any idea of how to do all that stuff. And I'm not even sure that I have the desire to learn it all. What would be your response to that person?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Traditionally, the answer for that person would be hire a consultant, and you pay $1,000 to $2,000 a month. I've even heard 2,500 a month, and that consultant does all this on the back end. Now, what they don't tell you is that they've figured out a way to automate 98% of their work, and so they're charging you $2,500 a month, but they're using a technology like ours on the back end. So what we've chosen to do at BDR AI, and this took me a while, it took me about a year to figure this out. I was charging $7,500 a month for prospecting as a service, data, email, dials, and LinkedIn. And what I found is that 70 to 80% of the meetings were coming from LinkedIn. I was like, I'm a Christian business leader. I don't feel right selling something for $7,500 when I know that I could deliver something similar for $500. I could deliver 70 to 80% of the value at a lower price. Customer will be happy. I'm happy because my margin requirements are met. So that's how BDR AI was invented. The CMO of a company came to us and said, Chad, I love what you do in your business. I own BDR AI and SDR AI. Would you like to acquire them? And I said, well, how much? And he said, 50,000. I was like, man, that's a lot of money. I mean, I know we look like we're doing pretty good, but $50,000 is a lot of money. So I said, let's talk in 60 days. So I called him back and I said, how do we get that name? He said, look, I really just want to take my wife on a cruise. And so I said, how's 2,000? Would that pay for the cruise? Okay, we'll do the deal. So that's how BDR AI was invented, because instead of spending $7,500 for a person to run all this, the fully white glove delivered solution is $500 a month. So that's the long story to how we got to where we are. But most customers, Dave, would choose to spend $250 a month. We give them the keys to show them how to handle their own replies, and they get the value. But there's some companies who can't be bothered by that part of the process, and they just say, I'd rather pay you guys $500 a month to do the whole thing for us rather than try to learn any of this.
And if somebody doesn't necessarily know what to uh, give, you'll help them with AI technology to help them to identify what would be a good give, what would be a valuable value-added
Yeah, we've
resource.
got some really good workbook. I helped build, I wrote LinkedIn sequencing part 2. And so that's very refreshed in the last 60 days. So there's a lot of really good templates in there. I prefer the workbook edition. So it's only 15 pages long, and it goes through a lot of what we're talking about here, and then gives you the chance. It'll give you an example, and then it has a lot of white space where you can write in, what's my connection request? What's my give? One thing I've learned with ChatGPT while we're on that topic, you can go in and log in and then say, what gives, let's say copy the about page of your website, or you used to be able to say visit a certain website. And then I think they've disabled that Bing search integration in the last couple of weeks. So I don't know if it can visit a site right now, but you can at least copy and paste, and then you can say, hey, tell me some good gives that a sales organization like ours might be able to give. And that's what this came up with. Free resources, a free initial consultation. A lot of people do that, so be careful of the ones that are overused. But a demo, success stories. So there's so many different gives. A give for me would be, hey, I've had 10,000 or more downloads this year of my podcast called AI for Sales. You guys sell an AI product. How would you like to be on the show? Like, that's a give, not an ask, you know? I spend $750 an episode to produce that thing. So I'm basically giving the customer a $750 value and access to my 10,000 people in my audience. Just think of wear the shoes of your customer. If they got your white paper that says 85 pages on it and it doesn't specifically point something out of value, hey, let me tell you all about us, versus, hey, here's the 80-page doc, right? We looked at this, Dave. Here's an 80-page doc. Look at page 9. There's 2 pages that I think you could use. It's totally free. This is based on 25 years of work. Here's the 2 pages out of the doc that you should pay attention to, and it's free. That's a value add for a customer.
So Chad, we've talked about data, we've talked about how to use digital technology, and this is just LinkedIn. You also have a tool that can use Facebook in a very similar way for a different type of audience. If you're not looking for an executive audience, you could utilize Facebook, and that includes groups targeting specific posts and events. Now let's talk a little bit about dials, because the idea of using technology and a dialer or having actually somebody participating with a dialer and having somebody that's actually doing the calls for them, that could be something that allows them to scale sales without having to take on employees. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, and before I go to the dialer, let me just touch on what you mentioned. Facebook AI is pretty darn amazing. And I really believe that's where LinkedIn AI is headed. So we've been beta testing a product for about 8 weeks. It's only been around for 10. 1,000 licenses have been deployed in 10 weeks. So think of how quick that is, right? It gets announced in the market, and now there's 1,000 licenses deployed. We've deployed just about 10 because we're not comfortable ever selling or delivering a product unless we try it ourselves, right? We got to taste the champagne before we go offer it to other companies, or the dog food, depending on what you get, right? So the way Facebook AI, you go join a group, or let's say you see a post that has 500 likes or comments on it, and then we plug in ChatGPT 4 and we teach the AI how to actually converse with the prospects. So what's amazing is sometimes when I send out a LinkedIn message, someone will ask me, Chad, are you a robot? And I'm like, no, I literally programmed that message. How dare this person ask me that? I wrote it. But we as humans tend to dot our I's and cross our T's, right? Depending on how good our grammar teacher was and how we learned it. Most people that I talk to would never misspell a word on purpose. With AI, you can say, misspell a word on purpose every couple of sentences. And so I'm saying it can be more human than human, which is a ridiculously crazy statement that I hear myself say. But that's where I think things are going. Now, you have to be careful. You don't want to say Chad Burmeister and they think they're interacting with you. You want to say Chad's virtual assistant, or this is Maria, the VA, or this is Joe, the VA. You can't say this is me. You can, until somebody comes in and says you can't. But I very strongly discourage trying to dupe your customer. But imagine a world, I'm doing an outreach right now for a company called Patriot Mobile, and they said, well, we don't want to plug in the Facebook AI. Can you just show us how it works? So within 30 minutes, I had a campaign running, 80 people a day, and it just says, hey, I noticed you're part of a Christian group. What are you working on? And then the AI picks up, right? Hey, they might say, well, I'm engaged in this church on the weekends, or I do this small. And then the AI is honed in enough to talk about that conversation. Oh, that's excellent. When did you first know you were a believer? Oh, 2004. Got it. Very cool.
So it's
awesome.
Actually automated, or it's AI for conversations. It's not just about the technology and targeting the ideal candidate. It's actually carrying on a conversation.
So
we only have about 10 minutes left. So let's put a pretty bow on this thing and land the plane on the dial side, because this is really exciting to show the capacity of how you can scale.
Yeah, so think about hiring that rep. We talked about a $7,500 a month person that drives 1,000 sales touches a month, 1,000 calls. Well, if you have mobile numbers, then you just had 100 conversations. And out of 100 conversations for cold outreach, the conversion on average is 3 per 100. So you make 1,000 dials, but you only have 100 conversations because you're calling mobiles, and you only get 3 meetings. So 7,500 divided by 3, that's $2,500 a meeting. In this case, I'm giving the person the benefit of the doubt. I'm saying, all right, maybe they're going to do some emails and some LinkedIn, and maybe they get 8 meetings or something like that. So 8 meetings at $1,000 a meeting. If you bring on technology like what we offer, then your in-house BDR could drive now 3,000 dials, 10,000, right? So I've got it at a pretty basic level, 3,000 dials a month. Now you just drove your cost down by a third. But for most entrepreneurs, man, I can't afford a $900 or even a $600 meeting. That's ridiculous. Hire fractional. So this is prospecting as a service delivered from our group. Now we're able to do LinkedIn outreach and dials, and we can get the cost down to sub $500. I've seen 250, 300, etc. Where it gets
And that's with you
really,
doing the
really,
dial. That's with your staff member doing the dials, not the staff member of the business owner that
yes,
hired.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's outsourced. But the difference is they're doing 3,000 dials a month versus the normal in-house person doing 1,000.
right.
And so that's how we're able to do more with less. The nuts and the bolts cost less when you use AI, right?
Mhm.
Remember, time in AI kills time. So that's what we're doing. We're killing time and putting the reps on the most important parts of the process. The last one, this is fractional BDR with LinkedIn only. For a large deployment, right? I'm sure our base cost is $250 a month for the technology. This example, we have teams that have deployed 25, 50 seats. And when you start getting into larger deployments, then the cost per seat can go down as low as 125 bucks. So think about a team of 20 people and the AI drives 5 meetings a month. Even at a $250 price point, and you get 5 meetings, that's $50 a meeting. So that's my message for this conversation today is why spend $1,000 a meeting when you could spend sub $100 a meeting? Let's take 90% of your cost out, speed up your time to market, have better market coverage. That's the beauty of AI for sales is 42% reply rates when you're using LinkedIn outreach. It's just a much, much more effective way. So we're just excited to partner with Grow My Profit because what I see as our partnership, Dave, is that you and the Grow My Profit team brings this part of the conversation to bear, right? Who are you targeting? How are we going to double and triple your sales in a short amount of time? How do we increase your profits? You guys bring the lens onto the entire process where BDR has really been focused a lot on the tactics and the techniques to drive velocity into the sales process.
Yeah, great presentation, Chad. And with most of the business owners that we talk to, we're in that space where either they're below the $1 million water line, which is where we primarily are focused, is a minimum of $1 million in revenue. And if you have less than $1 million in revenue, we have our Scale University, which you can go online and you can be a part of our virtual group where we do group meetings. We have virtual content, courses, and you can use a tool like BDR.ai to scale your business to grow it over 1 million. So then we can really get our hands together and really get to work on scaling your business from 1 to 2 and 2 to 4, 2 to 5, and then 5 to 10. But with most of the businesses, it's the idea of, I love all the strategy. You're giving me great consulting on what to do, but now there's this cost to go do it. And I don't have necessarily the confidence to go out there and hire the sales team, bring on the support staff and all the sales enablement members, and to spend the money on marketing to drive leads and on commissions. So it's a big, huge jump for a lot of business owners. The ones that have more success, that have already done some scaling, they're a lot more receptive to the idea, but it's still a downstroke. It's an investment. It's the long-term investment. It's greater than the good that they have right now. But it's a challenge. And now what we're doing with BDR.ai is that we're scaling at a pace that everybody could go. So if you just want to do LinkedIn, or you just want to do Facebook, you can do that at very affordable cost, and you can start growing your incoming leads. And then as you decide to scale that and open up more seats, you can do it at a very affordable cost that's not going to be a huge risk, and you can grow at a steady pace. And then if you want to go out there and you want to go full tilt, you can utilize the service by bringing in the data, the dials, and the digital technology, and really have the scale execution part of it just handled on your behalf. And with a really good salesperson or two or three, you could have a lot of incoming business utilizing virtual assistants to take care of some of the um, funnel flow, moving people through the process. So as we wrap up, Chad, I know that there's a lot of people right now that are watching this video that are thinking about some of the challenges or concerns that they have with their business, but any common things that you've addressed with other clients that have been just common barriers to taking the next step?
Well, I would say the biggest thing that I hear in the world of LinkedIn outreach, specifically these days, is, yeah, Chad, we've already tried that. It didn't work. So, if I heard that, got a dollar for every one of those, I'd have at least $100,000 extra in my bank account. But the difference is when they work with a company like ours that shows you give, give, ask in an effective way, it just changes the entire dynamic, right? There's a company called the CRO Collective, and great company, great leader. He helps companies staff their CROs, like they're a 50 million, $100 million company, and he shows them how to find them. He shows people that are VPs of sales who want to be a CRO. He teaches them how to do it effectively. So this is a premier upscale person, and he had that objection. He said, Chad, this doesn't work for me. But I got referred to him through someone who said, oh, hey, this Chad's getting me so many leads, you wouldn't believe it. And so now we're doing 4 campaigns with him, and all of those playbooks in parallel. And the one that's working really well for him right now, hey, notice that you've been to CRO Collective before. There's a vote coming up for the Sales 3.0 conference in Vegas. And, click here to vote for to vote for yourself or vote for someone you think should win that contest. And so it's leading with value. Oh, and by the way, would you like to get a $99 ticket versus the normal $750? A VIP ticket from CRO Collective. So he leads with value. He's getting so many replies now. He said, Chad, I can't keep up with all of those. Can you export the 80 replies from the last 90 days, 30, 60 days, something like that? And we want to email all the folks with my calendar link. And I was like, okay, no problem. We could do that for you. So, just because it didn't work before doesn't mean it won't work in the future. And you too can get to a 42% reply rate.
Yeah, and just the research that I've done, because we as a company have utilized other technology, and I can just say that um, getting the data right, extremely valuable, right? That's one of the things that Jeff and I have spoken on for years, is the quality of the data has to be great for a great response rate. You have to have good connection, right? The technology has to be able to deliver the goods, and your system has been delivering the goods for over 7 years. And if it breaks every time you turn it on, it's not going to be consistent enough. And you've been able to show that you can consistently send out quality messages and not be flagged or breaking people's accounts because you're doing it the right way, which there's a lot of wrong players in other countries that are doing this the wrong way. And then the third thing is that you have the capacity to bring in the calls. You can bring in the dials, and that's something that we think is extremely valuable, because if you aren't going to do that sales work, right, the fortune is in the follow-up. It's not just in the engagement. So if you just end with the technology and you don't have the capacity to move it towards dials, yeah, technology is not going to do everything, especially with a really targeted list. So, Chad, I just thank you for your time. Thanks everybody for joining us. If you want more information, Chad has organized a special offer for all of our connections. So if you go to growmyprofit.com/AI-business-development-tools, or just email us at support@growmyprofit, we'll send you a copy of the book from Chad, the digital version, and we'll make sure you get access to the special discount available for Grow My Profit followers. So thanks so much, Chad. Thanks everybody for watching. We wish you the very best, and have a great day.
Thank you, David.